everybody. We're out here in Senoia. We're getting started with Halloween. Who loves Halloween?
Who doesn't
Whoop,
love
whoop.
Halloween?
We all love Halloween. We're all going to be together in Lula pretty soon, but we're kind of warming things up, so we're out here in Senoia, and we're getting things started, but we're at a cemetery.
Yes.
I thought that was
How
where
cool
things
is that?
ended, though.
This is where things end.
But
It's
not
a lot
today.
Of times it's where
This
it
is where it
starts.
starts. This is where it all starts.
Where are we going, Sal?
So I'm looking right here. We're going to start out right here.
Okay.
This is where we're going to start because this is the Brantley tomb. And this is an interesting thing because if you look, there's names on both sides of the stone. And one quick thing too we want to talk about is these are facing east and this is west. And that's the way a graveyard should be set up. It says this is so that they can see the sunrise. Now when you bury me point, because I like sunsets better than sunrises. So just bury me pointing towards the sunset. That'll work for me. But if you look, Marie, on both sides, there are names. Dr. Brantley and his wife. They share a stone. And
Oh,
what's
how
cool
cool.
about this stone is it's solid Georgia granite. Granite was quarried here in Georgia for years and years. The cool thing about Dr. Brantley, well, one thing is his house is haunted. And we're going to go by his house. Because when we first started learning about stuff in Senoia, there was a woman who bought Dr. Brantley's house. Dr. Brantley, he has a home that's still here in Senoia. We're going to go there. Because when I, years ago, started looking into all the haunted things in Senoia, this woman who owns this home, her name is Wendy, and she started having things happen at the house. Which
Oh,
we'll
how
talk
cool is
about
that?
when we get to the house. To the point where she had to call in a rabbi. She's not Jewish. She had a friend who had a haunted house, said, I know this guy, I know a guy. She called in the rabbi and he cleaned the house. We're gonna go there in a few minutes. This is the house that the rabbi cleansed, and when he came here, they gathered in the front foyer, and the rabbi told the spirits to leave, 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 leave. The dog ran around in circles over and over again, and then out the back door, the rabbi sprinkled holy water around the door frames, and this is the Dr. Brantley's house. Our two Sues right here. And the neat thing about these two Sues, like I said, they were mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law married Olin, he was known as Olin, and she lived, as we get over there you'll notice, I believe she was 104?
God bless her.
Just shy of 100.
Just shy of 102.
103, actually.
103.
Yep.
She died in the house that was her mother-in-law's house, which is very famous. Are you fans of fried green tomatoes? You know,
Yep.
eating them and also the movie, right?
Yes.
So the house used in the movie Fried Green Tomatoes was the McDaniel house. And we'll go down there in a little while too. But the two Sues, they shared a story of an anomaly in the house. And let me show you where that is buried. Here's the story of our baby. Now you can see our baby barely lived a month. Barely, a little over a month. When we get down to the Travis house, well, let's just tell it this part right here. So our baby, the two Sues. Sue moved in with her mother-in-law, Susie. And the first time she was alone in the house, she heard a baby crying. Well, in those days, you had the windows open. Everybody knew everybody's business. You were out on the porch. If there had been a baby in the area, Sue would have known about it. You would have known everyone's business. There were no infants in the area at the time that Sue heard this baby cry. And when her mother-in-law, Susie, came home, she told Susie, it's the darndest thing. It must be someone with a baby visiting. I heard a baby cry. Susie goes, oh, Sue, dear, that's just our baby. Every time a new member of the family stays at the house for the first time, they hear our baby. Now, it was a sad story that Susie's mom had the baby. Susie was 13, so she was old enough to understand the tragedy and what her mother was going through losing the baby. So Susie remembered this very intently. And the reason it's our baby without a name was the traveling ministers hadn't been through town to christen the baby. So the baby passed away simply as our baby. A very tragic story, and one of two anomalies at the Fried Green Tomatoes house,
Woohoo!
McDaniel house, and we'll be there soon.
Now is this
Our-
Dr. Travis? Is this the same family?
Same family.
Okay.
And Wendy Osnick, who owns Dr. Brantley's house, she's a Travis.
Okay.
And the hat that she gifted me during a tour in front of her house was the hat of her grandma Travis.
Nice.
Oh,
So she
very
said, maybe
cool.
this has got residual energy. Now, in Lula, we're going to talk about residual energy, but that is when an object, ooh, like this necklace, that's a good example. This was a beloved necklace of my mother's. My mother grew up during the Depression. This and a few pieces of silverware was all she had left of her family's memory. Her dad lost his job in the Depression. They put all of their items into storage, but he couldn't pay to get anything out. This necklace and just a few pieces of silverware was all my mother had of her family's heritage. It was a very special necklace. So I think it holds a little residual energy.
His date would have been.
Or his two wives.
Well, no. She would have died 16 years after him. This was probably husband and wife.
And so next to,
1859,
so who would
1863.
Francis have been?
Daughter,
Daughter?
1904.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So all three grouped together.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
This would have probably been Dr. Travis. That's something we'll have to research.
Have to look into that.
This
There you
house
go.
is famous in town as well.
Travis house.
Yeah, the two front doors.
Yeah, from The Walking Dead.
Yes, the two front doors.
So if you don't know it, Jim and I were Walking Dead tour guides as well. So you're going to get a little Walking Dead information as we go around today too. I hope that sparks your interest. So we're looking for ghosts and zombies.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah, we'll look for all
Plenty
of
of both here in
them. There you
Senoia.
go. Now,
Sally,
sir,
is this the McKnights of the McKnight house?
maybe. Which is the McKnight house?
The one on Pilot Street across from the mayor's house?
Oh, maybe.
And then he's
Maybe.
the one who built
Maybe.
the one with the off-center
Yeah,
doors.
yeah. See, there is a couple of cool.
Oh yeah,
And
because
that-
there's a story
and there's
behind the
one
McKnight
house,
house.
and there's one house, with the house you're talking about. When they went to remodel the house,
That's the house.
they found a stairwell
Yeah.
that they didn't even know it was behind sheetrock, a hidden stairwell. Well, what do you do if you find a hidden stairwell? You go up it, and in there was a small room, no windows, and on the wall in writing, I want to say pencil or probably chalk even, like a charcoal, and it said things like held here, kept here, saved here, and all of the dates were during the Civil War. Two theories. One, he was hiding soldiers.
Somebody in there.
Someone threw out one time that it was part of the Underground Railroad. But because the gentleman, the McKnight, he was, I think, a colonel with the South, I have a feeling they wouldn't have been using his house.
Yeah, he wouldn't have
For
been
that,
using
I
the
think it's
house.
more likely he was maybe holding injured soldiers long enough for them to gain their strength. But could you imagine remodeling a house? He was, oh,
There's a
honey,
hidden stairwell
there's
behind a wall.
there's a stairwell here. And
We've
so
lived
that's-
here how many years?
Yeah, now across from that house, that was the meatloaf house. And we heard that when the people moved in, they kept smelling, no, not meatloaf, pot roast. They kept smelling pot roast. And they had a friend come over who was, she considered herself an empath. And she said, you know, your house is haunted. And they said, well, we've been wondering. And without being told, the empath told the homeowners, she really loves pot roast. They were like, oh my, that's all we ever smell here
Smells pot roast.
is pot roast. See some flowers.
Yeah.
So Culpeper, we're going to go to the Culpeper house. This is the Culpeper house. This is where they sat on the porch, recalling the story of the Confederate veteran who laid down his life for another soldier. And it's the same street where Rick is running from the walkers down the street.
Right on the corner of
Right
Broad
on the
Street
corner. But the Culpeper family, so the Culpepers had a nephew who did not survive the Civil War. But a lot of times these veterans of the war would come back in reunion. And they reunioned at the Veranda Inn, where we'll stop in a little while as well. They would come in their uniforms and they would talk about the good times of war. Anyway, it doesn't make much sense to me, but that's what they would do. So the Culpeppers were on their porch one day and they knew that a group of veterans had come to Senoia to just gather and reminisce. And up to their porch comes a gentleman and he says, "I knew your nephew." Now, Dr. Wilbur Culpepper, and that's the family's name. Well, they came up, this gentleman came up to the porch and they said, "We knew your nephew, I knew your nephew. I served with him in the cavalry and I was with him in that last battle in Noonan where we pushed Sherman back." Ah, Wheeler. So in the family's Bible, it mentioned that he was a wheeler. Now, when I did the research, I'm like, what does a wheeler mean in the Civil War? Was it somebody who fixed wheels? What does this mean, a wheeler? What it meant was he served under General Wheeler. And Wheeler, it was a cavalry. Now, if you're going to be in battle, wheeler. Now, when I did the research, I'm like, what does a wheeler mean in the Civil War? Was it somebody who fixed wheels? What does this mean, a wheeler? What it meant was he served under General Wheeler. And Wheeler, it was a cavalry. Now, if you're going to be in battle against someone else, wouldn't it be better to be on a horse?
Yeah.
A heck of a lot better to be on a horse. But they got to a point to fight Sherman in nearby Noonan where, in a tank, that's a good one. General Wheeler commanded his troops to dismount and go forward with bayonet. But he didn't need all of them to do it. So the most democratic way to do this was to call out roll. And he told everybody, we're going to call out numbers, 1, 2, 3. And if you're number 4, I want you to dismount and go forward with your bayonet. Really a death sentence, really suicide. Well, they called out the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. The men would dismount and go forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, dismount and go forward. 1, 2, 3, the gentleman who was about to call out 4 was the boy on the porch telling Dr. Culpepper this story because he said, "I hesitated. I was scared. I was 16 years old during the war. I was petrified. I hesitated. Your nephew, Culpepper, called out the number 4 for me, dismounted, went into battle, and lost his life. He saved me, and he sacrificed his own life for me to live simply by calling out the number 4. And this was a story that the Culpeppers retell on their porch, and they believe that their relative is probably watching over as they recall his bravery. This is the grave of young Marion Holberg. This is the Holberg plot. The Holbergs are the folks who built the building that is now the Veranda Inn. This is the front of the historic Veranda Inn. And we'll take a right here, the Veranda Inn. Young Marion died because of something he did accidentally in the backyard of what is now the Veranda Inn. This is the actual obituary of young Marion Holberg. Now, when we talk about Marion Holberg, we're going to talk about the fact that later, I did a little tour there on a Friday the 13th, like we're going to do in October. It was August, and I don't like Friday the 13th. I have freaking triskaidekaphobia. I hate to admit it, but I do. We had some meters running, and someone's meter said, chicken, drop, and August. When we get behind the Veranda Inn, I'll explain why some of us who knew this story were ready to leave immediately. Little jewels on there. Now, another little thing that Jim's going to be learning about to share with you guys if you come up to Lula is going to be the significance of coins. And do you know any of the significance of coins? So it's supposed to be for military graves, and they say you leave a penny just saying, "I visited your grave." Okay. And there's other, I think it's a dime or a nickel if you served with them. And I'll look up, I have it at home on the computer. We'll get it straight. When you come up to Lula, Jim will know all the details by then. Now that I know his correct email address, because I've been sending him stuff for a month that he hasn't been getting. So anyway, I'm like, how come he didn't respond to this? That's weird. But there is a certain coin, I don't know if it's a nickel or I think it might be a quarter. If you watch that person pass during military service and you visit their grave, you leave a quarter. So we'll talk about the significance of leaving money. Now,
Okay, so we buried my mom and my niece when she walked up to the casket just before we closed it.
here, let me get you.
So when my mom passed, we walked all the way up, my niece walked up to the casket, And it was the year that my mom passed that my mom was turning 75, I was turning 50, and my oldest daughter was turning 5. And we were having the 3/4 celebration in June when my mom would have turned 75. So my niece walked up and dropped 3/4 into the casket, not realizing that it would drop all the way to the bottom. It's pitch quiet, and all you hear is ka-chink, ka-chink, ka-chink.
Oh
ka-chink.
gosh, that's funny.
And that's the story of the 3/4.
The 3/4. I love
Because it
that.
would have
That
been,
was Bella, wasn't
yeah, it
it?
was
Wow.
it would have been 75, 50.
You
and
know, there is a
25.
lot to do with numerology. With the murder in Coweta County, Mahaley Lancaster believed in the number 3 was very significant
Yes.
to her. Numbers, that's an interesting. Stop right here. I want to show you guys this. This is just a really cool spot, but Jim's looking at really closely at these dates, and he's going to tell me something he recognizes. Oh gosh, that one can't even read that one anymore. Where is?
Is there a gate to get in there?
That's right here. Here, without getting into a quicker. Wiley Hand.
1866,
Okay, it's the death date that I want you to see.
91.
November
1st.
1st, 1891.
Okay,
He was 25 years old.
all right, now go over to this one. And
Day apart.
yeah, the only day in between their death dates was the day of Halloween.
Yep.
So the question is, were they both sick, or was there some sort of a farming accident? So we
Halloween.
researched and never found out, but it was clearly father and
Actually, father to the
Father
right,
and
to the
son.
left.
and they died just days apart. We can only speculate. Disease, accident.
1890.
And also there's a small stone of an infant in this grave that the name has nothing to do with anybody else in the plot. I did a lot of research on it. We don't know who it is, whether someone had a baby die and someone just took pity on them and said, we've got a plot, please lay your child to rest. So this is a very mysterious plot. 2 years of research and never figured out the details.
And I can tell you just by looking at it, there's nothing recent.
Oh no.
No.